The Think Table is Instagram's first publication on immigration. Usually we take a look at different issues in immigration in the United States, but for the rest of the year, we're taking a look at immigration around the world, and we're partnering with the Migration Policy Institute. For this episode in our series on global migration, we're taking a look at Latin America. And when we think of migration in Latin America, we often think of migration northward to the United States and to Canada. But recently, there's been a lot of migration happening within the region itself. Notably, nearly 7 million Venezuelan migrants were displaced and then welcomed by neighboring countries. And today we're speaking with Andrew Selee of the Migration Policy Institute to get some more clarity.
My name is Andrew Selee. I'm the president of the Migration Policy Institute, and we're immensely pleased to be partnering with Immigrant Food on the Think Table, thinking about immigration around the world. We have seen a huge amount of mobility and migration in the Western Hemisphere over the past decade, but it's not just the United States. In the United States, we tend to think everyone's headed here, but actually much of the mobility has been people moving to other countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. And we've seen some of this is displacement. Some of these are big displacement crises. Venezuela, which went through a really big conflict and economic crisis. Haiti with the earthquake and political crisis. Nicaragua. But some of it's also people, looking for opportunities and realizing they can move. And then, of course, you've got in the past few years a lot of people coming to the United States again, right?
So speaking of, America, there's this sense by a loud minority that America is being overrun, right, by these illegal, undocumented immigrants, mostly from Central South America. Are they actually taking American jobs?
What we know is that the American economy is expanding and that the native-born labor force is going down quite dramatically. We're reaching an inflection point where almost all labor force growth is coming from immigrants. And so certainly people are finding jobs. People, with the exception of a few thousand people that are in the shelters and large percentage of the Venezuelans because they don't have the social connection in New York and Chicago and some other big cities. But most of the people who are coming to this country find jobs very quickly, and in fact quicker probably than ever before. That said, we should worry about the chaos at the border. The fact that there is a perception in American society that there is not an order to how people come across the border is true. Also, right? That the system is broken down in multiple ways. The Venezuelans are complicated because it's about 6.5 million people that have left. They're in every country in Latin America, and they're in the hotels in New York. They're also the people who did not have connections elsewhere. And so it's been hard. Countries have been very generous in the hemisphere towards them and have tried to give them legal status, but they didn't really have deep social ties for the most part. It's a big part of the debate going in the United States as well because it's the group that has the fewest connections and is most likely to end up in shelters or needing public assistance because they don't have the family networks that others do.
Absolutely. And take your crystal ball, Andrew. What do you see in the next 20 years in the region? Where is migration going?
I actually think the most fascinating development of the last 10 years is this used to all be about Latin Americans and people from the Caribbean wanting to come to the United States and Canada, right? There were two big developed countries. Everyone else was, leaving their countries. Slight exceptions maybe with, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, Brazil, maybe, but slight exceptions, not very big exceptions. Now, almost every country, except for 6, almost every country in Latin America and the Caribbean is getting migrants, right? And part of that is even though we don't always see it, there are more sophisticated economies and more developed economies in a lot of countries. Brazil and Chile and Argentina. Argentina's got its problems, but overall it is certainly Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador even. There's more of a middle class. These are more complex economies, and there are jobs. And so I actually think I'm strangely optimistic, which is I think we are still going to have some crises. I still think there'll be some countries that may not progress as fast, but I'd be very surprised if 20 years from now there isn't much, we are a little bit closer together in levels of development. And, if we're lucky, we've gotten to a place where fewer people feel forced to move.
Immigration is an issue around the world, and today we looked at Latin America. Next up is migration in Europe. To learn more about this, as well as many other immigration-related topics, follow us on social media at Immigrant Food. Sign up for our newsletter, where each week we send you 5 ways that you can make a difference. And join us inside the restaurants to stay #United at the Table. See you guys next month.